Welcome to 7th grade math. Scaffolding the lesson, investigating the relationship between multiplication and division. What is the relationship between multiplication and division? They are inverse operations, which means they do the opposite. Multiplication brings together and division separates. How is the relationship between multiplication and division like the relationship between addition and subtraction? Like addition and subtraction, multiplication and division can undo each other. For example, 8 times 2 divided by 2 equals 8. So if I do 8 times 2, that's 16, and then I divide it by 2, it's 8. So the division undid the multiplication. And 15 divided by 3 times 3 equals 15. So if I do 15 divided by 3 equals 5, and then I multiply it by 3, it equals 15 again. So the multiplication undid the division. How are addition and subtraction used to solve equations? And how might multiplication and division be used to solve equations? To solve addition equations, you subtract, and to solve subtraction equations, you add. So similarly, to solve multiplication equations, you divide, and to solve division equations, you multiply. What division facts are related to the multiplication problem 3 times 4 equals 12? Well, we know that 12 divided by 3 equals 4, and 12 divided by 4 equals 3. We can identify the coefficient in each equation below. 6c equals 18, so 6 is the coefficient to the variable c. 15 equals 3z, 3 is the coefficient to the variable z. Negative 8x equals 24. Negative 8 is the coefficient, variable is x. Negative 9r equals negative 36. So negative 9 is the coefficient, r is the variable. Suppose 3 friends order an appetizer of nachos that costs $6. They agree to split the cost equally, and the figure below illustrates the multiplication equation 3x equals 6, where x represents the amount each friend pays. So 3x, because there's 3 x's, equals 6. So if I just do that, and I match each x with 2, and that breaks up 6 equally, x equals 2, right? So here we have 3x equals 12. So what if I just split these up into equal 1x for an equal amount of 1's, right? So I get x equals 4 because I divided 3x by 3 and I've divided 12 by 3. How about 2x equals negative 8? Can I divide the x's by 2 and the negative 8 by 2 so that I get x equals negative 4? 4x equals 20. So I have 4x and I have 20. Can I divide the x's by 4 and then the 20 by 4? So I get x equals 5. 8 equals 2x. So if I show a model, I have 2x on the right and I have 8 tiles on the left, and I can divide those into the tiles into groups of 4, and the x's I can divide by 2. So if I divide the 8 tiles by 2 and the 2 x's by 2, about 3x equals negative 9. I have 3 x's on the left, and I have 9 negative 1's on the right. Can I divide those each by 3? divide 3x by 3, and I can divide negative 9 by 3. So I get x equals negative 3. What operation did you use to find each solution? Division. How can you use the coefficient of x to solve 8x equals 40? Well, I have 8x, right? Will 8 go into 40? I can divide each side by 8 because I know 8 will go into 8, and I know 8 will go into 40 5 times. Scaffolding questions. What is the inverse operation of addition? Subtraction. What is the inverse operation of subtraction? Addition. What is the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. What is the inverse operation of division? Multiplication. How can you use division to solve a multiplication equation? Since division is the inverse operation of multiplication, you can undo multiplication by dividing. Equations like 3x equals 6 are called multiplication equations because the expression 3x means 3 times the value of x. So you can use the division property of equality to solve multiplication equations. In words, if you divide each side of an equation by the same non-zero number, the two sides remain equal. In symbols, that means if a equals b and c is not equal to 0, then a divided by c equals b divided by c. So if a equals b and c is not 0, you can't divide by 0, then a divided by c equals b divided by c. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do the other side in order to keep it equal. So examples, 8 equals 8. If we divide both sides by 2, it's going to remain equal, right? Both sides are going to be 4. So in algebra, if we have 2x equals negative 6, we can divide both sides by negative 2, and it still remains equal. X equals negative 3. So we're going to solve multiplication equations. Solve 20 equals 4x, and then check your solution. Write the equation 20 equals 4x. Divide each side of the equation by 4 because we want to undo 4 times x, right? So we're going to divide each side by 4. And those lines just represent division lines, or turning it into fraction, which is division. 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So x equals 5. Check the solution. 20 equals 4 times 5. And 4 times 5 equals 20. So 20 equals 20. Solve negative 8y equals 24. So we have negative 8y equals 24. Negative 8y is negative 8 times y. So we want to undo that by dividing negative 8y by negative 8. And if we do that, we have to divide 24 by negative 8. So 24 divided by negative 8 equals negative 3. So y equals negative 3. And if we check the solution and we plug in negative 3 for y, we get negative 8 times negative 3 equals 24. 24 equals 24, so the solution works. So y is negative 3. Check your progress. Solve multiplication equations. Solve 30 equals 6x. Check your solution. So write the equation 30 equals 6x. And divide each side of the equation by 6. We want to divide it because we want to undo the multiplication of 6 times x. So if we divide 30 by 6 and 6x by 6, 30 divided by 6 equals 5. And 6x divided by 6 equals x. So we get 5 equals x. And to check the solution, 30 equals 6 times 5. We know 6 times 5 is 30, so 30 equals 30. So the solution works. Solve negative 6a equals 36, and then check your solution. So let's write the equation, negative 6a equals 36. We need to undo the multiplication of negative 6 times a. So we're going to divide each side of the equation by negative 6. And if we divide 36 by negative 6, we get negative 6. And if we divide negative 6a by negative 6, we get a. So a equals negative 6. And we can check the solution by subbing in negative 6 for a. Negative 6 times negative 6 equals 36. So both sides of the equation balance, and that works. Solve negative 9d equals negative 72, and then check your solution. Write the equation. Negative 9d equals negative 72. We want to divide each side of the equation by negative 9, so we can undo the multiplication of negative 9 times d. So division, negative 9. Negative 72 divided by negative 9 equals a positive 8. So we have d equals 8. And then if we plug in 8 for d, we get negative 9 times 8 equals negative 72. And that equals negative 72. Real world example, text messaging. It costs 10 cents to send a text message. You can spend a total of $5. How many text messages can you send? In words, the total is equal to the cost of each message times number of messages. And let m represent the number of messages you send. So the equation would be $5 equals 0.10 times m. So that 0.10 stands for 10 cents. And m is the number of messages. So write the equation. $5 equals 10 cents times m, or 0.10 m. Divide each side of the equation by 0.10, and we're doing that because we want to undo the multiplication of 0.10 times m. So we're dividing both sides. $5 divided by 0.10 equals 50. So 50 equals m. Remember, when we divide by a fraction or decimal, our number gets bigger because the parts are smaller, but there's more of them. Check the solution. 5 equals 0.10 times 50, and that would be 50 equals 50. So that works. Check your progress. Mrs. Acosta's car can travel an average of 24 miles on each gallon of gasoline. Write and solve an equation to find out how many gallons of gasoline she will need for a trip of 348 miles. Words. Total gallons of gas is equal to the amount of miles divided by the miles per gallon. Variable is G to represent the number of gallons of gas. So the equation is going to be 348 miles equals 24 miles times gallons. With the equation, 348 equals 24G, 24 miles per gallon. Divide each side of the equation by 24. 348 divided by 24 equals 14.5. So yes, you get 14.5 gallons. 348 equals 24 times 14.5, and that works. Formula, an equation that shows a relationship among certain quantities. One of the most common formulas is the equation D equals RT, which gives the relationship among the distance D, rate R, and time T. So a real-world example, the tortoise is one of the slowest land animals, reaching an average top speed of about 0.25 miles per hour. At this speed, how long will it take a tortoise to travel 1.5 miles? You are asked to find the time t it will take to travel a distance d of 1.5 miles at a rate of 0.25 miles per hour. So let's write the equation. D equals RT. We know that D is 1.5. We know that rate is 0.25, and we need to find t. So we have 1.5 equals 0.25 t. And we know that we need to divide both sides by 0.25 so that we get t by itself. And we divide 1.5 by 0.25 and it equals 6. So 6 equals t. So it takes 6 hours for a tortoise to travel 1.5 miles. So we're going to write the equation and then divide each side of the equation by r. And then we replace d with 1.5 and r with 0.25. So all we did here was we moved the variables around first and then we plugged them in. So then we did the math last, just like we did before. So formula, once again, we have the formula for distance equals rate times time. And a sound wave travels a distance of 700 meters in 2.5 seconds. So this time we know, well, once again, we know the distance and the rate or the time. Find the average speed of a sound wave. You're asked to find the rate it travels per second if it travels a distance of 700 meters in 2.5 seconds. So again, we know distance and time this time, and we have to find rate. So substitute, then solve. So d equals r times t. Replace d with 700 and r with 2.5. And then if we divide each side of the equation by 2.5, we have 700 divided by 2.5 equals 2.5r divided by 2.5. We get 700 divided by 2.5 equals 280 meters per second. So r equals 280 meters per second. And I misspoke earlier and I said we were going to plug in 2.5 for r. We plugged in 2.5 for t for time. So solve, then substitute. So we'll say d equals r or times t. We know that we're going to solve for r. So we're going to divide t out of both sides to get r by itself. So we get d divided by t equals r. Then we'll replace the variables d with 700 and t with 2.5. So we get 700 over 2.5 equals r. And that equals 280 meters per second. So it's the same as, either way, we come up with the same answer. Additional examples. Solve 39 equals 3y. Check your solution. So 39 equals 3y. Because it's multiplication, 3 times y, we're going to divide 3 out of both sides. And we get 13 equals y. And then if we do the math to check, we plug in 13 for y, we get 39 equals 3 times 13. And we know that's correct. So solve negative 4z equals 60. So we'll write the equation, divide each side of the equation by negative 4, because with negative 4 times z, we have to undo that, and we undo multiplication with division. So, and what we do to one side, we have to do the other. 60 divided by negative 4 equals negative 15, so z equals negative 15. And then we'll plug in negative 15 for z in the original equation. And if we multiply negative 4 times negative 15, we get 60. And that is correct. Additional examples. Serena went to the post office to mail some party invitations. She had $6.15. If each invitation needs a 41-cent stamp, how many invitations could she mail? So in words, the total is equal to the cost of each stamp times the number of invitations. The variable is going to be x for the number of invitations that Serena can mail. So our formula is going to be $6.15 equals 41 cents times x, the number of invitations. So here's our equation, $6.15 equals 41 cents x. And we're going to divide each side by 0.41 so that we can undo the multiplication between 0.41 and x. And if we divide both sides, 6.15 divided by 0.41 equals 15. X equals 15. So if we plug 15 in for x in the original equation, it works. An equation that shows a relationship among certain quantities. One of the most common formulas is the equation d equals rt, which gives a relationship among the distance d, rate r, and time t. Miss Wang swims at a speed of 0.6 miles per hour. At this rate, how long will it take her to swim 3 miles? So we have rate, we have distance. So we are solving for time this time. You're asked to find the time t it will take to travel a distance of d of 3 miles at a rate of 0.6 miles per hour. So we'll substitute then solve. There's our equation, d equals rt. We'll plug in 3 for d and 0.6 for r. And now we're going to have to divide each side by 0.6 because we want to undo the multiplication between 0.6 and t. So 3 divided by 0.6 equals 5 hours. So t equals 5 hours. So method 2 is where we take the formula and we figure out what we need to solve for. And if we divide each side by r, so that we get t all by itself, and then we plug in 3 for d and 0.6 for r, we get 3 divided by 0.6 equals 5 hours, or 5 equals t. All right, here is your homework. You can go to Google Classroom to enter it tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.